So the next topic that we are going to discuss is to find the presence of an element. Finding presence, as in, if I talk about this element, let's say we were selecting values from here. So before we select value from here, I want to check the presence of this element. Or maybe before I click on this link, I want to find the presence of this particular link, right? So let's say if I inspect this element, I get the XPath for this element, copy XPath, and let me try to check the presence of this element. So in order to do that, I'm going to create a new class. I'll say class test is element present. Right, and what I'll do, I'll copy initial code from here, paste it here, and then I'm gonna give the URL like this. Okay, URL is the same, so that's fine. Now I want to check the presence of this element, so I'll again copy the XPath, and I'll call one of the method driver dot find element by dot XPath and say dot is element. There is no method called is element present in this API. So we got three methods. One is displayed, one is enabled, and one is selected. So all these are Boolean method. Means Boolean will gonna return you a value true and false. If a button is if a link is present, then it should return as true. Otherwise, it should return as false. So which method to choose when we are checking the presence of element? Should we choose is displayed, because is selected is this is related to the element is selected or not, mostly related to options and select, radio button, checkboxes, right? And this is enabled, we're gonna check whether the button is disabled or enabled. But a pre condition is that the element should be present on the page. So I can only see is displayed. So let's try running this. Let's try printing it and see if it returns true or false. So if an element is displayed, means if an element is present, it should return true, otherwise it should return false. So let's see what it returns. It returns true. It means the element is present on the page, right? Now what I'll do, I'll change this XPath to something like this. It means the incorrect XPath, right? So if I run this now, this should return as false because this element is not there on the page. So let's run it. And let's see whether it should return false or not. And if you take a look at the console, it is still waiting because implicit wait waits for the presence of element. So for 10 seconds, it will wait and then it should return false. But it has not returned false. It has thrown some exception saying no such element exception unable to locate this element. It means this method is not checking the presence of element. Right? Then what is displayed doing? Is displayed is actually checking the visibility of an element. If the element is displayed or not, means if it is visible on the page or not. For displayed as well, the precondition is that the element should be present on the page. Present as in present in this HTML DOM. It could be a hidden element, it could be a visible element. So if an element is hidden, then it should return false. If it is not, it should return true. Like if I show you one of the element over here, we were talking about this drop down list. So this is one of the hidden elements. See, it is wrapped with a different element. So if I try to print the presence, the display property of this element, of the ID of this element. So I'll give by ID. So it should return as false. Let's run this. And if you see over here, it returns as false. So this is what is displayed is actually checking the visibility of an element. Right? It is not checking the presence of an element. It is just checking the visibility. Is selected, we're gonna check whether the element, the checkbox is selected or not, or option in radio button is selected or not. isEnabled will gonna check whether the element is enabled or disabled, and isDisplayed will gonna check the visibility of an element. But how to check the presence? There is no method in WebDriver through which you can check the presence of an element. So if a method is not there, then we need to write some logic to achieve that method. As in, if I talk about a method, how the method will look like. If a method is like isElementPresent, it should be something like a Boolean method, isElementPresent, right? String locator, something like this. Now here, let's say I'm going to logically design it. I'll be doing it something like this. Driver dot. Okay, first I would be needing the driver, so I'll declare it globally. So I'll say public static WebDriver driver, so that I can access it over here. If I'm declaring it globally, I need to remove it from here. So I'll say driver.findElement by dot xpath, and xpath we're going to give the locator key from here, locator dot. Okay, we are just checking the present, so I'm just going to find it over here, up till here. So see, if this statement is successfully executed, it means that the element is found, and we're going to return true. Maybe if an element is not found, it will going to throw an exception over here. So exception as in, we're going to get no such element exception, and we can handle that exception. I can say try. I'll put it inside try, catch, throwable t, and I'll return false. So that is what isElementPresent is. Right? If an element is present, it will return true, otherwise it will return false. So let's try using it. What I'll do, I'll go over here, and instead of this, I'll gonna give isElementPresent. Now instead of by.id, we are checking it with the xpath. So xpath will be // and add id equal to this, right? So then I'm gonna remove isDisplayed, and we'll be checking the presence like this. So isElementPresent with the xpath. If this is present, it will gonna return true, otherwise it will gonna return false. So let's run this and check whether the element is present on the page or not. And let's see. Okay, the xpath is not correct. Basically, I need to add single quotes over here. Right, that's the reason it was not able to find it. But see, it has returned false. And if you see over here, it returned true. Now, if I give any incorrect xpath and run this, and if you look over here, see for the 10 seconds, first it will try to find it. If it is not found in 10 seconds, then we're gonna get false over here. So this is how we have designed isElementPresent. I mean, these are only logics. So you can do it in this way, and even if in case you want to use find elements, you can do it in this way as well. Find elements. What find elements returns you? It returns you a list. So you can say find elements by dot xpath, xpath give it from this locator, and say dot size. Check the size of that list. And then store it inside int size equal to this, and say if size equal to 0, means if the list does not have any size, then it means there is no element inside that list. So it should return false. Otherwise, it should return true. Again, we have created the same method, but with a different logic. So these are only logics, right? If I run this thing now, If the XPath is incorrect, then it should return false. Means the element is not there on the page. It should return false. So let's see. So it returned false. Now if I correct the XPath and run it again, it should return true, right? So this is how logically you can create isElementPresent. But the only issue with this isElementPresent is that the approach that we have taken, we are using it with XPath only. Right? Means this method will only going to work for XPath. So why not make it specific to XPath? Means if I make it specific to XPath, next time I want to search it with the CSS, then I'll create another method which will say isElementPresent CSS. Then isElementPresent ID. All the 8 locators, I'll be creating 8 different methods for isElementPresent. So is there any optimized way of doing it? Instead of creating 8 methods, can I handle all these things in one single method? Yes, we can do that. Instead of string locator over here, pass on the by class reference over here and use this by over here. That's it. What is the benefit of doing this? Now, when you go to your code, where you say isElementPresent, you need to say by.id or by.xpath, whichever you want to use. Just pass on that expression. If you are using XPath, just say by.xpath, that's it. Or if in case you are using ID, okay, it's throwing some error. Let me check. Change to isElementPresent. Oh, okay. I have not removed XPath from here, from the name. So it's isElementPresent, right? So if in case you are finding with the ID, simply say ID and no need to give XPath. So just give ID and check the presence of this element. So if the element is present, it should return true, otherwise it should return false. See, return true if the ID is not there, and if I run this thing again, this should return false. So this is how things are logically handled when you're working on WebDriver. For everything, you're not going to find methods available in the library, right? But the concept they have designed in such a way that anything that is feasible in Java with your own logics, you can integrate the same thing in WebDriver. Right, and these logics will gonna build up by the time you start working on WebDriver. You do a lot of practice. You like try to automate websites on your own. You face challenges. You do troubleshooting against those challenges, and this is how it will help you in building up the troubleshooting skills as well as the logic building skills as well. Right? So this is all about isElementPresent, isDisplayed, isEnabled, and isSelected, the difference between all these things. And this is how we will be using isElementPresent in our code. All right, thank you.